Hi, everyone. Welcome back. Annemiek, I'm here with Véronique van Gelderen. She is one of our soul-based coaches in training, and I just found out she also has a PhD in linguistics, which is fun, but also actually makes me really curious about where our conversation is going to head. But yeah, Véronique, you've been in the academy's kind of sphere, taking trainings for over a year now. Is that right? Because you started with our 8-week program and now you're more than halfway through our certification program.
Yeah, that's right. About a year now, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's just a real joy to have you with us. And yeah, you're just sharing so much about how amazing this work is for you. So yeah, let's share. What about it is amazing?
Yeah. I really loved preparing for our talk today, Annemiek, because it really helped me to kind of formulate, I know this stuff is amazing. I know it's just the thing that I've been looking for the last 50 years, but why and how, and just kind of get a sense of that. That was so much fun to feel my way into that and to try and find words for it. And the thing that I really find amazing about soul-based coaching is that of all the modalities that I've encountered in my life, it's, I think, the only one that is both really safe and really powerful at the same time.
Mm.
And that's rare for some reason. Because, I had I don't know, a kind of difficult childhood, nowadays you would call it traumatic. I don't think it would have been called that when I was having it, but, there were things that were not very nice and that were hard to deal with. And so as an adult, I find myself seeking a lot of support from different, coaches and therapists in different points in my life. And what I really experienced is that either it was very safe, it felt very safe, the contact with the coach or the therapist, but then nothing much was actually happening. There was a lot of talking and seemingly unpacking things, but nothing seemed to really shift on a deeper level.
Mm.
Or going to see the person in question was a little bit like having surgery, like it felt like someone would go in, to places that are really kind of inside and would, from their expertise, rearrange stuff in there. And that, to me, as a client, often felt very violent, and I didn't enjoy it. I just, so in the end, it felt like, I don't know, I think there were periods when I kind of gave up on the concept of going to someone for help, because this seemed to be kind of the two pathways
Mm.
until I discovered soul-based coaching.
Mm.
Because it has that combination of being perfectly safe and incredibly powerful. And this morning I was thinking about what makes it safe and powerful. You want me to tell you about that?
Yeah. Please share with us.
Okay, so I think what makes it incredibly safe to begin with is the fact that it's so deeply rooted in holding space and in that energy, that bowl, that container that is created when you really hold space for another human being. That creates safety in a way that goes beyond words. And that is almost impossible, I think, to have without it, actually. And then, as if that wasn't enough, there is the skill set that we learn in soul-based coaching, the clean language method, which is so incredibly respectful of the way that the client articulates their experience, because you don't go in there with reformulation and paraphrasing and what you thought you understood. You stay so close to what they share in their own words. And that also, I think, creates an incredible sense of safety. That's also what I've experienced as a client, in the training, when we practice. It's amazing, the feeling that you then have, how safe that feels. Mm. And then there's also this radical trust in the process and in the client's process. It's not just that you don't put in your words, it's also that you don't put in your agenda. Just yeah, the client is in charge of the process at every single step. And I think that's both very safe and very empowering also.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, go on. You are not done yet.
No, go.
Yeah, no, I was just thinking that when I always try to like, I love how you're kind of pulling out the strands of like what creates that safety. And I'm also trying to listen with the ears as someone who might not be familiar with this work, or who might not have experienced it. And so when we say that the client's um, is at the helm, that the client decides what happens, that to some people might feel like very unsafe, because how could a client do that if they're the ones coming to us for support? Would you, because I talk about this so often, it's very, very cool to have other people verbalize how they experience this. Could you say something about how can it be that the client decides, like the client is the one at the steering wheel, the client decides where the session is going to go, and even to some degree how it's going to unfold, but we as coaches are definitely not deciding? And how can that be safe? What's your sense of that?
How can that be safe? See, my sense is, how can anything else be safe? So, I think the metaphor I have for it is that in kind of what I would call traditional coaching, where the coach or therapist is really the expert, it's kind of like a feeling that you have a mountain guide, and and you're following behind them because there are tricky trails, and they walk ahead of you and they point you to the views, and they tell you where to step and stuff like that, as opposed to in soul-based coaching, where I think the coach is like the sherpa behind, carrying your backpack and all your stuff, and from time to time saying, would you like a snack? Is there anything else that you want me to pull out of the backpack or put in? And I think the reason that is so much safer is when you understand that the client creates the mountains. These mountains you are walking in, they're not mountains in the same way that, the Mount Everest is a mountain that has a kind of solidity to it that's unavoidable, And I think once you understand that if we're talking about an inner process, it is the client that creates the mountain, the paths, the views, the treacherous spots, and also the bridges to cross those, then suddenly it makes absolutely no sense to have some other person walking in front of you, blocking the sight of the path, and telling you about what they see. So I think in that is really the thing somehow for me.
Beautiful. I love your metaphor. We love metaphors anyway in this process because, hey, they are the core carriers of information. Hey, why not use them as we're trying to also explain what this work is about? But I love that. I love the difference between the mountain guide and the Sherpa. And that last thing that you added is crucial. Understanding that in inner work, it is the client who creates the mountains. And this is not a logical thing, right? We're talking about the subconscious, and also the subconscious creates the bridges. It creates the solutions. There's I think in general out there, people have no idea how powerful that is. Okay, so I think that's a little bridge into powerful, isn't it?
It
Yeah.
is.
How cool.
Bridge into powerful. Okay, so it's super safe, and it's also incredibly powerful. And it's incredibly powerful because it engages. This is just my understanding of it, but it engages two layers of our humanity that I think are not sufficiently engaged, or we don't get enough invitations to engage in them in our modern Western world. And these two layers of humanity are our imagination, our deep imagination, and our body. And I think we live in a world that is, I think most of us would agree, a little bit dominated by the thinking mind and the logical linear approach to things. And although I think that's a very valuable layer of human existence, I think that the body and the deep imagination are crucial to functioning fully as a human and dealing with life as it comes to us. And that's what we do in soul-based coaching. We go deep into that imagination and we bring it in contact with the body. So that these two amazing, channels are engaged as well. And that in turn gives us access to something, actually to two things. At least that's how it works for me. I'm sorry, it's like I'm just telling you how it is, It's not how it is.
It's beautiful because you're speaking from your experience, and this is a great example of how we approach our clients in soul-based coaching, because your experience of this is super useful as it is. There's a lot that we can take from it, and then we can complement it with other people's experiences, and when you're watching, with your own experience. If you're like, ooh, I want to know more about this, there's like plenty of ways that you can come and try. So tell me, how is it for you?
Okay,
What
so for
two
me,
things happen? You have the imagination and you have the deep body wisdom.
yes, the body, yeah. And they are brought in with all of their wisdom and with all that they contain. And when these two are brought in, then for me, it gives me access to two connection lines that I really need to be fully human. And one of them is kind of I would say it's the connection with the collective human intelligence. Not my own intelligence as one single individual, but the intelligence of my species. Which, I don't know, it sounds a little woo-woo, but I actually think it's kind of ancient technology, or whatever you want to call it. It's something that humans have known how to do for a long time, but we don't only have an individual intelligence, we also have a high intelligence. We are one organism as a species too. And it's only when the imagination and the body are allowed to come in and share what they see, what they feel, what they experience, that we can actually tap into our collective intelligence. And the holding space as a container, the ancient tradition of circling, just sitting in circle and listening to each other, which is of course also holding space. That's really about that. It makes us far more intelligent in a different way than we're used to. So I get access to that. And as if that wasn't enough, I also get access to the kind of non-human world, and by that, for me, that means anything from, depending on how you were wired spiritually, from divine beings to ancestors, to humans from a long time ago, but also to birds and trees and the wind and the sea, everything that is the world that is not human and that is constantly whispering to us with its own wisdom and its own love and its own, contribution. That too, I, as a small individual human, can only connect to when my body and my deep imagination are also engaged. And so because of that, in soul-based coaching, because we open these channels, and suddenly it's not just us having to solve our problems, it's not just us having to find a way through the obstacles and the hard bits and the painful bits, and the lost bits, but it's all of that coming in, What's not to like?
What's not to like? It's like I'm aware that, like we said, we would have a short conversation today, but we have seeds of many conversations in this conversation, because I very much recognize what you're saying. And it's like, I'd be super interested, if you're watching and you have experience with soul-based coaching, I'd love to hear your words around this. Like, what opens up for you through soul-based coaching that you wouldn't otherwise have access to? Because I think there's probably a lot of inner models that we have to kind of try and I was going to say pinpoint, but that's like a ridiculous word in this context, but like to point towards what it is that is possible, what it is that can open up for us when we work in this way. And I love the words that you're choosing here. So both the collective wisdom for us as a species, and then the non-human world. So both the spiritual and non-tangible and tangible world of nature. And so that speaks to, for me, that speaks to the field that we work in, which is so incredibly rich and so incredibly filled with potential for shift and change that our logical mind could not even contemplate.
Never.
There's like sometimes there's like an inkling of a sense, but like that's about the extent of it. And it's a little bit like, you know, trying to go at life using like you know, maybe trying to use like the door handle of your car. Like that's kind of like, that's my thing for going through life, whereas there's like so much more available. But then also there is this layer of what happens when we do that, because to our logical mind, change happens because we understand something in a different light, right? Or change happens because, I don't know, the doctors prescribed medicine and that's going to fix the chemical imbalance in the body, and therefore, but look at me, biologically I've shifted and changed my experience. But there's a different layer of change that becomes possible when we work in this field that we operate in soul-based coaching. How would you put words to that? Just for fun.
Just for fun. I think for me, what happens when you engage in this way, as you do through soul-based coaching, what happens is that you open to the flow of constant change, and you access a place from which you can relax into that constant change that is happening anyway. So that change is not so much something that you make happen with your will, but it is that you align yourself somehow from a very relaxed place with the changes that are constantly occurring in your system, in the systems around you, in the systems that you're part of. And that gives it a sense that it's like you're moving with the river, you know? And it's such a powerful feeling. You know, when you flow with the river, then any moment you are part of that flow, and it feels like so, what's the word? Engaged. I don't know. I think it also redefines kind of agency, you know, what that means. Rather than pitting your little flag against life, you know, like making a go of it or something. It's I don't know. I think it changes your concept of change.
Yeah, I agree. And I love how you're pointing towards that relaxing into that flow of life. I think there's some keys there. So the word that I often use to describe that flow of life is this Shakti energy, this creative energy that kind of makes everything happen. And there's like when we can kind of be like in co-creation with it, that's my language around it. Doesn't make it better, but just so that we can kind of look at how things kind of move in the same direction here, is that when we can relax into that flow, that we also start to be able to, you know how an apple tree, like in the spring, it started, I see some buds forming, like the first little flowers are starting to happen at the moment. We can see where the leaves are starting to come out. And it's like everything in that apple tree kind of flows towards why it's here, like its purpose, so you like. And there's no fighting it. There's no ideas around it. There's no oh, it has to be in this order or on this time scale. It just kind of happens in constant communication with the soil, with the temperature, with the amount of rain. And so as part of that whole ecosystem, there's just this inner impulse to bloom, to grow, to heal. And I think that is like we all are lived by that impulse, like that energy is available to all of us. It is what life is made of, literally. But we're in that mind-dominated paradigm where it's like we're not in communication with it. We try so hard very often from that place to kind of go make things happen. Like I'm gonna, yes. But when we can relax into that relationship, then we also start to see that how change moves and happens in our bodies is like, I'm going to say unprecedented, but that's just to the mind, right? It's like it's such a different quality of change then.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why we often call it magical. Why I call it magical all the time, because it's like, it seems like this is something that shouldn't be possible or couldn't be real, but yeah, I don't know about you, but I've seen so many experience, like I've seen so many people, like really, like it's even hard to put into words, get the thing, like get more of the things that they want in life, right? That's what the mind wants. Like, do I get more of what I want? Okay, yes, check. But also seeing people flourish and open up and deepen into layers of themselves that have been kind of hard to reach for like long periods of time. And just because of that, what they want changes and shifts. And there's like a relaxing in general in their relationship to life, which of course again leads to other kinds of results, so to speak. What's your sense of that?
Yeah, it's exactly what you say. I think it's really beautiful the way you put it, and the tree blossoming, that's exactly how I've experienced it. And it's also what you said about it feels magical because the mind cannot fathom it, but it's the only thing that ever makes anything happen,
Yes.
outside the limited perspective of the mind, there's nothing else going on, except this constant tumbling and unfolding towards healing, towards harmony with everything around and inside. So absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so funny, isn't it? It's that thing about how, with the oh, sorry, my my shoulder. Um, with the prevalence of the mind in our world, which has brought us many good things, right? So I'm not against the mind, let that be very clear. But it's like, okay, it's like this tiny little ant has gotten control over the whole of creation and is working so hard. It's working so diligently to kind of get all the ducks in a row and kind of make everything happen. But it's not in the right seat.
And that makes it very frightened also, because that little ant deep down, it knows it's not in the right seat. And it knows that no amount of toiling and working hard and figuring it all out and publishing articles, is going to actually make it the right size for the seat. And that creates that anxiety that I think is such a undertone of modern life.
Absolutely. And so much of what people come to in coaching is related to that anxiety as well. And so maybe this is also part of why that relaxation happens when people can start to work in this way and really allow themselves to find out what it is like to be in co-creation with life. Véronique, I think we should write a little fairy tale, like a little anthology, so to speak. Because there's some really juicy stuff in here. Okay. We were going to talk for 10 minutes. I think we kind of just barely made it, maybe a little bit over.
Half an hour.
Yeah. So is there anything that you feel needs to be said before we wrap this up? Like one last piece that you're like, oh yes, this would be.
Just that if you haven't tried it yet, you really, really, really should give yourself the gift of dipping your toes, and there are many ways to do it, into the experience of soul-based coaching on either side of the equation.
Yeah.
I just kind of wish it for everyone, just to try and see.
Find out.
And
Find
it
out.
just might be the most amazing thing we find this year or this decade.
Mm. Yes, and so if you're listening and you're like, oh, I do want to know more, then sign up for the Academy newsletter, and that there is like monthly free workshops, soul-based coaching circles, there's masterclasses that we offer, there's trainings, of course, that we offer, but also come and join us in our Facebook group, because you'll find coaches in training looking for practice clients as part of their journey as well. So hey, maybe you get lucky. Véronique, thank you so much. Everyone, thank you so much for listening and watching, and I'm sure we'll be back. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, Annemiek. Bye.